Welcome to Crossing Borders, the podcast created to keep investment migration professionals connected and informed. Today, we have a very special guest who is widely regarded as a leader in the field of investment migration, the CEO of Henley Partners, Dr. Juerg Steffen. Dr. Steffen first joined Henley Partners in 2013 to set up the firm's Singapore office and later was appointed CEO of the group. He has more than 30 years of experience in the financial services industry, wealth management, and investment migration. Dr. Steffen, thank you very much for joining us here today. We are very happy to have you with us.
You're welcome, Tatiana.
Navigating the new level of volatility is a very profound title of your article in the Investment Migration Council Yearbook, published at the beginning of this year. Can you run us through what this new level of volatility is, in your opinion, and how this developed in the last few months?
Yes, of course, with pleasure, Tatiana. So, things are changing constantly. This is not something new. Everything changes always. And so what we see now is mainly in Europe, actually, and in North America, that high net worths and investors from these countries, they look for options for residence and citizenship programs outside of Europe or outside of the US. And that's quite a new phenomena. We always have seen applicants also from Europe, and from North America, but in these kind of numbers, in these high numbers, this is very new and started actually in the middle of COVID. And so, we asked ourselves, of course, why is this the case? And in both cases, it's relatively easy to understand. In Europe, we have the Ukraine war, the conflict that is going on now for years already, and it doesn't seem that it stops very soon. And so Europeans are, of course, worried that they don't know what is going on, and they realize that they need options, because you don't know what is going to happen, and the world, for sure, in Europe became more insecure because of this Russia-Ukraine war. And our clients, when we talk to them, they realize that you need to have options in place now, because if something should happen, then it can be too late. If something should happen, then of course there would be an exodus, and many people would want to move somewhere, and then these countries where they move to, they will close the borders. And so people realize that now is the time to think about possible solutions to get another resident, another citizenship, or even more than one different citizenships. And in Europe, particularly, the clients are asking for options outside of Europe. And the same we see in North America, where we just opened last year 3 offices because of this big demand, and are going to open more offices this year as well. There it is the uncertainty. So at the beginning, what we saw is that the ultra-rich, the billionaires, they started to trend. They realized during COVID that they are Americans and can live, of course, in America, but they can't easily travel somewhere else when the borders are closed. And so they came to us and said, hey, what kind of options do you have? And we are actually looking for options in Europe, Asia, Africa, and Latin America. So in all the continents, more or less, because you don't know what is going to happen. So they're looking for a kind of insurance policy or life insurance, that if something is happening, they have the choice and can go somewhere else, and don't have to decide now actually where they will go to, because things are constantly changing.
Yes, it's amazing what is happening. Thank you very much for sharing.
You're welcome.
Before that, everyone wanted to go to the United States, and now it seems like Americans are moving to Europe and all the countries that you mentioned.
Of course, we still see, we still have the trend, especially in Asia and in India, of a lot of people who actually want to go through the US. So that's the interesting thing, the same with Europe. We have Asians, Americans that are interested in European residencies and citizenships. We never had as high application numbers as we currently have for the European programs. And at the same time, we have the Europeans who are worried and also look for solutions outside of Europe. So it goes in both ways, and the same in the US as well. So we see still a big demand for EB5 and for people who would like to move and take residence in the US.
Right. Yes, historically, investment migration has been a convenient add-on for globally minded investors, but today they are a necessity. But how do the governments act? How do they handle the situation? What is happening at the sovereign level to adapt to these changes?
So, you're probably aware, Tatiana, we are very active on the government advisory side. So we set up many of these residence and citizenship programs, or helped governments to do marketing for their programs. And so there are more and more countries coming with new programs. So it's a big trend. It's becoming the new norm to have such a resident or also a citizenship by investment program. And through that, the governments are contacting us and want to discuss with us the introduction of a possible resident or a citizenship program. So on the resident side, there are now over 100 countries having such investor programs, and of course, not all of them can be successful. And this is also what we tell the government. The country itself has to be interesting. It can't be that you want to attract people to come to your country if the country is not stable, if the security is not good, if the weather is not nice, if historically, there were conflicts in recent years. So the country itself has to be successful. But then you also need additionally a good marketing campaign. So you have to bring the country on the map. And this is very interesting also on the citizenship by investment side, because countries nowadays, they realize that you have to attract entrepreneurs. You have to bring entrepreneurs to your country. And this is an interesting way to do that with a resident or a citizenship by investment program. It's of course not the only way. Also, when you look at the migration side, there are skilled worker programs, there are talent visas, there are nomad visas, there are a lot of different also entrepreneur routes. So it is clear, that investor migration is not the answer for all kind of migration needs that people have. But, it is clear to people who are doing that, they can get vetted very well with a very thorough due diligence. So it is much easier nowadays to do this due diligence. There are international due diligence provider that are focused on that. And the world is becoming more interconnected, and the information flow is much better than in the past. And nowadays you even have tools to do 24/7 sanction checks of all the applicants. So from that perspective, the governments realize the risks are actually low because of this thorough due diligence that is nowadays possible. And You get also investment, so you get foreign direct investment into your country. The government can decide whether it should be in the real estate sector, whether it should go into funds, whether it should be a donation option. So and that the governments realize, okay, you know, we receive hundreds of millions, billions through these programs, and have additionally on top entrepreneurs that are linked to the country. And of course, you know, see the countries in new eyes as a resident or citizen, and then start often also to invest in the country.
So they build emotional connections with the countries. It's not only that they, let's say, buy passports or get the residencies, they also sometimes move to the countries, open businesses, and connect their future with this country as well.
Of course, yeah. And from that perspective, you know, what we tell the governments is, it's better to have entrepreneurs that are connected. Some of them will move, some of them will perhaps move only in a few years, but it's better to have them connected with the country so that they have the country on the map and have an emotional, as you said, you know, emotional connection with them, than not have any contact with them.
Wow, thank you very much. That's very interesting. And of course, all these movements raise challenges. And what are the current challenges in the investment migration industry? And what solutions would you recommend to overcome these challenges?
So I think our biggest challenge at Henley Partners is growth. And then that's, of course, a very positive challenge. So we never had as many people who were interested in our services. We are growing very fast. We are hiring people around the world in all our offices. And so the challenge is actually that we have such a huge demand. And of course, from a education perspective and from advisory perspective, we want to deal with all these applicants and with all these questions that we receive on a very professional level. And so we are hiring constantly and growing, and it's a positive challenge. And you know, when you ask me how will the future look like, how does the investor migration industry or sector looks in a few years, in a few decades, then it is clear for us at Henley Partners that it will be much bigger. It will grow. You know, people realize that it is actually important to have different residence and citizenships. And usually these investors and entrepreneurs, they are also investing into the financial markets. And so when you invest in financial markets, it is clear for everyone nowadays that you can't just buy shares or real estate or bonds or hedge funds or venture capital. So you have to have a mix, because you actually don't know which asset class performs best in the next quarter or in the next year or the next few years. There is a very interesting overview from UBS, when I'm not mistaken, that shows which are the top asset classes every year in the last 30 years. And there you see that it's constantly changing. Nobody can really predict, you know, which asset class will be the top performer next year. And so these entrepreneurs and investors, they realize it's the same with the residence and citizenship. You know, nowadays you feel secure in the country, but you realize, you know, there are tensions, there are possible conflicts, the economy is not doing well. And so the logical thing is to look at alternatives and to have them in place at the right time, when you can choose and when you have time to go through the application process. And therefore, there is a big demand, and the demand will only increase because all people realize it's very important to have these options, and the government realize, as I said before, as I explained, they realize that it's actually not a risk, it's an opportunity, because from the risk perspective, as I said, you can do thorough due diligence. You saw these roundtables that in the Caribbean happened with the Caribbean governments that have such programs, or also these talks that the Caribbean Prime Minister had with the EU. And there, the EU and also the US said, you have to do a thorough due diligence with an external due diligence provider. And this is already happening. So that there were no new requirements to introduce. The only one is the interview process that Caribbean governments are now introducing. But generally, the due diligence is accepted to be on a very good level, on a very high level. And so from their perspective, it is clear that new governments, after these talks that happened with the EU and the US, see now that these programs are actually widely accepted, and therefore it is likely that new countries start soon with programs. So these are positive challenges, growth that we see, and from a negative perspective, I don't actually see many negative aspects.
Yes, and we in the investment migration industry and many promoters who are on the market right now, of course, for them, Henley Partners is a role model. And I know your story when you moved to Singapore, and throughout 1 year, the office had already 30 staff, 30 employees. And what was the most important thing that moved this growth? And what advice would you give maybe the other companies who are doing the same to grow like Henley Partner does? They all are watching you.
Yeah, so it's of course, it's not only one thing. We are constantly looking how we can improve, and there are a lot of small steps that you have to do. And the most important is, of course, the colleagues that you have, the teams that you have. And therefore, and there it is very important, that you are aware that you have to build a very diversified team of different individuals, and then bring them together to be one team. And this I realized very early on. On the client side, it's also important to understand that these high net worth individuals, they are dealing with a lot of advisors. So it is very important to be honest to them, to tell them if you don't have the answer that they're looking for, or if you think you can't help them, that you tell this to them, and not just sell them a product. But actually advise them, listen also, listen what their situation is, what their demands are, why they're looking for an alternative resident and citizenship. And through that, if you are close to your clients or prospective clients, and if you have a really good team that is serving the clients, then you will succeed over time. But of course, it's difficult. When I moved to Singapore, I had no network in Singapore. I started from zero, and it's a hard work, because you have to build a trust also to the intermediaries. You have to meet with dozens, with hundreds of intermediaries, so that they know you if their clients are looking for solutions. But if you do it thoroughly, and if you are a real advisor to your clients, and if you have a great team, then at the end it will work for sure.
Thank you very much. So I hear 3 things. Strong team, bring value to your clients, and also listen to the client carefully, identify the needs, and offer the program that the client needs.
Yeah, correct.
Great. And talking about the clients, If you were to describe your current client demographic, what definitions would you use?
It's difficult. I often also, governments ask me these questions, and it's really difficult because there are a lot of different programs. That there's the Thailand Elite program, as you know, and there the entry hurdle. So there's for 20,000, 15, 20,000, you already get a resident permit in Thailand for a couple of years. And then there is Malta, the Malta Citizenship by Investment Program, where the all-in fees and the donation are together over €1 million. And so you can't just say, there's one group of clients. Also on the resident by investment side and also on the citizenship by investment side, there are clients who want to move, who look for a better place where they can raise their children, where they have good schools, or where the security situation or the lifestyle is better. And so, there are people who clearly want to move right away and look for the right program. Therefore, we started also recently our education initiative, where we now also provide education services to our clients. So there is this group of the applicants who want to move right away or in the next 12 months. And then there is this other group who just need a plan B. So who do these programs, as I explained before, more from an insurance perspective, from an insurance perspective, so that they know if the world is changing, if the country where they live in is going in the wrong direction, that they can actually move somewhere and already have a setup there. Often these clients then buy a house or buy an apartment in these countries to prepare for a possible move. So they get in contact with the country, with the people. They build networks in this country. They don't want to move right away, but are prepared. And so from that perspective, really, it was very different. You have the clients who are very, very wealthy, the ultra high net worth, and then you have the more or less middle class applicants that that look for a better place for their families. They are younger, they are between 30 and 40, have young children, and realize that the place where they are is not optimal, and they're looking for a better place to go to.
Yes, and this is great that there are options right now. It's not only investment programs that are popular, but also non-investment programs that also gives the possibility to have a residency and move. And also talking about education advisory that your company is offering right now, I think this is an amazing asset because many of us, so we do everything for our kids, and this is one of the moving forces, I would say, for the moves, and this is a great addition.
Correct, Tatiana.
Okay, Dr. Steffen, thank you so much for your precious time, and it's an honor for us to have you here. Thank you very much for joining,
it was a pleasure
for sharing.
To talk to you.
Of course, great insights. And as I said, you are the role model, and I'm sure that this episode will be very popular with the industry players.
Thank you very much, Tatiana. Thank you.
Yes.
Have a good day. All the best to you.
You too. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And don't forget to sign up to our Investment Migration Council podcast to stay connected and informed. Thank you very much.